Networking is one of the most important activities in your career. People don't really tell you how to network, what it is, how do you go about it. So here's what I'm going to do today. We're going to talk about how to network, what networking is, and I'm going to talk to you about how to conduct an informational interview or a networking meeting. And we're going to talk about what to do before the meeting, what to do during the meeting, and then how to follow up after the meeting. And through that, hopefully you will gain an idea of what it actually looks like to network effectively, person to person. So networking at its core is all about building relationships and sharing information. And you can network a bunch of different ways. I mean, today with social networking, there's lots of sites where people connect to each other virtually. So you can connect to each other online. You can network in events and in groups, clubs, a variety of different things. And you can network individually, person to person, coffee house, lunch, meeting in an office. Now, all of those networking methods are effective, but at the end of the day, it all needs to funnel down to a person-to-person meeting. So when folks connect online, that can be a great way to start the networking relationship, but it needs to eventually lead to an in-person meeting. I had a client once who I got really excited because he told me he was doing tons of networking, and we were trying to figure out what was wrong with his job search. And then I said, well, what does that look like? And he told me, well, I've been adding a lot of people on LinkedIn. I said, do you know them? No. You're not networking, you're just adding names. It's like adding friends on Facebook and you don't even know them, right? So networking effectively comes down to a person-to-person relationship. Same thing with events. I network a lot and I really enjoy networking, but sometimes events, even for myself, can be awkward and you don't always know what you're going to get. At an event, you're not as likely to meet somebody and just bam, right there you land a dream job or a great business deal. But you meet people and then you foster that relationship outside of the meeting in having a cup of coffee is usually what happens. So in that actual networking meeting, and I'm going to call it a networking meeting, not an informational interview, because an informational interview is strictly to gather information for yourself if you're trying to figure out your career path. And sometimes that is a networking meeting, and sometimes the networking meeting could be for a variety of other reasons too. So let's focus on if you're going to have a networking meeting and you're likely going to be gathering information for your career or something else, what does that look like? Before the informational interview, there's a couple things you can do. If you're taking somebody's time who is likely going to be helpful to you, you want to think through, how can I make the most of this person's time and be respectful? Start by looking them up online. Either a LinkedIn profile, a bio on their company page, or at least something about their company, their industry, what they do. The more you can learn about who they are, the more you can ask good, intelligent questions. The key to a successful informational interview is asking really good questions, and you can do that on the spot, but it really comes by careful preparation. So beforehand, I will usually write 3 sets of questions if it's a networking meeting. The first set of questions I want to ask is about the person. I don't want the meeting to be about me, I want it to be about them. I want to understand who they are, what their motivations are, how can I help them? If you can build a relationship and figure out how you can help the person, you've all of a sudden become an excellent networker. So first set of questions, how can you help the person? Questions like, so tell me your story. How did you get to where you are now? What was your career path? What do you like and dislike about your job? Or just learning about them as a person and their family. So start with questions about the person and what they're actually doing now. My second set of questions that I will write down is questions about the person's company, organization, or industry. And this is kind of moving from me just wanting to know who they are as a person to talking about things that are mutually beneficial for the two of us. And so I might ask them about their company, what the culture is like, or what the hiring processes look like, or what are the things they really enjoy about their company. Sometimes I'll ask, if you were to leave this place, where would you go today? What other companies have values or do things in a way that you'd really respect and you'd want to align yourself with? I might ask about the industry. So tell me about the trends, the big things that are happening. And hopefully I've done research, so my question isn't as vague as that, but I might say, a trend I'm seeing in this area today is this. I'm noticing that a lot of folks are doing videos for career services. Are you doing that? What does that look like? How are you incorporating that? So you get to a more deep, intelligent question, and then you engage in the dialogue. And they're excited at this point because they're talking shop with you. So, sometimes you feel awkward wondering, why would they want to talk with me? But if you thought of good questions about them, they're going to feel good because people enjoy talking about themselves. And if nothing else, they enjoy being known. Everyone has a desire to be known by other people, and so you're validating them as a person. So asking these questions based on your research about the person and the company, the industry, gets deeper, and you're engaging in a rich dialogue, and you're gaining a ton of information, much more than you could just read online, and much deeper. So I go from first set of questions about the person, questions about the company, the industry, the field. And the third set of questions are the questions with advice for myself. Sometimes I'll never even get there, because if I learned about the person and what's important to them, that's the most important. But if I have the chance, and sometimes they'll lead you here, I'll ask questions about advice for myself. So, based on what you've heard about me, or what our conversation is, what would you suggest? What are the things I should do if I want to get into this field? What are the experiences, the knowledge, the skills and abilities? Are there certifications, educational trainings? What types of things, if you were to start over again right now, what would you do? So that bleeds into the how can they help you out, right? At the very end of that conversation, the last question I'll ask is another referral. One more person who could help you continue your research. If you've had a good conversation, you've asked great questions, they've likely mentioned a person or two you could reach out to. So that's what I'll do before the meeting is I'll come up with questions. Questions about the person, questions about their industry or field, and then questions for advice from me. To context all of that, I will often think through a short intro about myself to help them understand who I am. I mean, imagine you met somebody at an event and you exchanged some words and both of you thought it might be worthwhile to connect. We don't really know each other. So, I'll thank them, and somewhere along the line, I'll find ways to talk a little bit about what I'm doing, right, where I've been in the past, the experiences I've had, the things I've enjoyed doing, the problems I've solved, what I'm currently doing, and then what my future aspirations are, either for my business or my career, and that gives context to why you're connecting with them. So I'll sprinkle those things throughout. So you've done your research, you've seen who they are online, you've prepared some really good questions based on your research, and then you have the meeting. Now, people often ask, where the heck should I meet somebody? And I'd say wherever is going to be easiest for them. So if I'm reaching out to somebody, I'll often ask, what would be easiest for you? Would you like to meet in a coffee house near your work? I can meet in your office. Or maybe they say we can meet at a place convenient for you. So that's great. You throw out some potential times, you agree on one, and I'll usually plan for about a half hour. So I'll wear a watch to my meeting. We're having a great conversation. I'll look at the clock or glance on my watch and mention, it's about 25 after, and I want to respect your time. This has been super interesting. I've got plenty of time, but I want to make sure, do you have anywhere you need to go? Now, at this point, because you've asked great questions, they're enjoying themselves, and they'll likely say, oh yeah, I've got 15, 20 more minutes, or I don't have a hard stop, we can keep going. And that will likely last about an hour is what I end up seeing for most of those sessions. So that reminds me, when you make your questions, make sure you have plenty of questions. I usually say about 12 to 15 questions, and I'll highlight the 6 that I'm really interested in asking the most, in case some people, you ask them one question and it fills up 30 minutes. Other people, you have to keep going. So be ready and be flexible for both. And it's totally okay to bring your questions with you. After you've done enough of these, you might be comfortable, you have them in your head, and that's fine too. Whatever is going to make you comfortable, and it's okay to take notes in the meeting. During that meeting, again, it's okay to have your notes and write down answers or questions that they're responding to you, and have a dialogue with them. The other thing I'll do during the meeting is be okay for the conversation to go different places than you expect. The most important thing about networking is building relationships, remember? So because of that, if the conversation goes a different way than you expected and you did not ask any of your questions, that's okay. That means you have another coffee date with this person in a couple months where you can ask those questions, or a follow-up email, which is totally okay as well. So be okay for the conversation to go different places. The other thing I'll do during the conversation, this is probably the biggest thing, again, because it's about a relationship. Good networkers know that it's about understanding a person and figuring out how they can help them. The best networkers will start off by trying to figure out, what can I do to help this person? They'll be listening for little things such as they have kids and I know a great babysitter, or they mentioned that they're trying to hire somebody and that position is not suitable for me, but I do know a handful of people I can refer to them. Or they mentioned a charity that they're really passionate about, so I'm going to see if I can get involved in that opportunity. Or they mentioned a business deal that they're trying to work through, or I know some information. There's hordes of ways you can be creative and think through, how can I add value and serve this person? If you try to serve the person, it makes networking a lot less icky and gross, because people often are concerned about, I don't want to take somebody's time and ask them for things. And my response is, if networking feels gross, it means you're doing it wrong. Because good networking is a two-way conversation where you enjoy a relationship and you figure out how to add value to somebody's life. And so if you do it right, you're thinking of a lot of different ways you can help somebody. If by nothing else, you are giving them the time of day and validating and affirming them as a person. And that is valuable. It's amazing that oftentimes people's family and friends don't really know what they do on a day-to-day basis. And so you're going to somebody and saying what you do is valuable. So in that meeting, you have your questions, you're taking notes, you're looking for ways that you can help the other person, and you're not there just to get something. You're there to build a relationship. If you do that, the conversation goes well. You might have bought them coffee or offered at least to buy them coffee, and they might have bought it for you. Either way is okay, always okay to ask. And you leave the conversation by mentioning a couple things you're going to follow up with. And then after the meeting, you follow up diligently. So beforehand, you prepare really well. During the meeting, you have a nice engaging conversation which could go a variety of places. Focus on how you can serve the person. Consequently, you're going to learn a lot for yourself. And then after the meeting, you follow up. First thing I'll do as soon as I can is I'll send an email thanking them for their time, expressing my gratitude, highlighting a couple highlights of the conversation, such as, it's so great to hear that it was really exciting to chat about your son's basketball tournament. I'm really excited to hear how he does. Funny to hear that he's playing the same team I did in high school. Whatever it is. So you make this nice personal note, and you might follow up by saying, oh, by the way, I forgot to ask you about this. It's a nice way to catch things you forgot to ask on, or you promised them something. As promised, here's that book I mentioned that just really changed my perspective on whatever have you, and I want to make sure I sent you the link to it on Amazon so you can look it up yourself. So use your follow-up email to diligently follow up right away, but at the same time, it's a nice way for you to capture what happened in the conversation. 6 months later, if you reach out to that person and you forgot some of the details of your conversation, you can look at that email and you recall what the conversation was about. So it helps archive the conversation as well. And then after that, I will send a thank you card as a follow-up. Some people only like to do the email, and the email is valuable. It's instant. You can communicate a greater degree of information. But the thank you card is so powerful because it's just a nice personal touch to show, I care about you and I really appreciated this and I took the time to write it. I had an instance once where I had an informational interview with an individual, and a year later I met with her in her office and she had my thank you card on her desk. So a year later, she still recalls me because I'm there in the form of a thank you card. Beyond that, it just shows a lot of care. So you followed up immediately afterwards, but one of the things I often get asked is, well, how do I continue to maintain the relationship? And that's the tricky part. It's actually not too hard to build the relationship. I mean, after you've done 2 or 3 networking meetings, it's totally comfortable. But it's the maintaining and building it afterwards. And again, if you know how you can help the person, there's a lot of ways you can follow up with them. So maybe you discovered, again, a passion of theirs or a hobby, and you put a reminder on your calendar to reach out to them and ask them how that's going. Or a big project that they were working on, and you might reach out in 3 months and say, I just wanted to check in and see. It struck me this is probably about the time you're launching that product. How did it go? So it's just a nice way to stay in touch and say, I care about you as a person, and I remembered what we talked about. There's a number of other ways you can stay in touch. Typically, maybe you find a way to reach out to them with an article or a book you found that you thought would relate to them well. One of my favorite things to do is connect people to each other. So someone might say, gosh, I'm really needing, thinking of someone recently told me that they're looking for a Salesforce developer. Okay, great. Can't think of anybody, but maybe in 3 months I have a conversation with a Salesforce developer and I go, oh my goodness, I know a great guy to connect you to. And you might reach out to them with an introduction and say, here's somebody I think could be a great service to you based on our conversation. And you make a win-win between people. Networking is all about building relationships and using those relationships to help other people. Consequently, you'll get taken care of too, but it's about serving other people. So there's a number of ways you can stay in touch. Around the holidays, it's a great time to reach out to people. When I got engaged, I reached out to folks in my network and told them about the good news, or sent out baby pictures of our first and second children. I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can stay in touch with people in just a natural way. If nothing else, I have folks who will reach out to me every 6 months or so and just say, hey, it's been a while. Love to grab coffee and connect. And we do. We have an interesting time talking shop or sharing information. So be creative. There's a lot of ways you can follow up. And with today's technology, with reminders and calendars, it's fairly easy to keep people front of mind. And then, again, if you know their needs, you can always be on the lookout for how you can help them. A friend of mine put networking best. He described it as a lifestyle, not an action. The person who decides to network because they need a job is going to feel awkward. The person who networks because it's a lifestyle of building relationships and helping others will find it easy. And suddenly, it's like you have a new pair of glasses and you look at every instance in the world as a networking opportunity. An opportunity to help somebody else, to bring value to their lives, to connect people. And then networking becomes a lot of fun. So hopefully it's given you some good tips on what you can do to prepare for a networking meeting, whether that's started by an online conversation, someone you met at an event or the grocery store that funnels into an in-person networking meeting. And again, prepare for it by figuring out what to do beforehand, doing your research for great questions, having an excellent conversation where you identify their needs, and then at the end, finding ways to follow up and continue to foster the relationship later. If you do those things, networking can become a lot of fun, and I think you'll enjoy it a lot.